you've got to let your kids practice.
Yeah, it's like it's practice, not protection.
Correct. It is practice, not protection. And the more that parents say, well, I'm actually doing my child a favor by protecting them from feeling uncomfortable or from having a bad social interaction, what they're actually protecting them from is the ability to figure out how things work.
Welcome to Season 8 of Flusterclux with Lynn Lyons, where we talk about managing worry, anxiety, and all the other emotions too.
I'm Lynn Lyons. I'm an anxiety expert, author, speaker, and mom. I've been a therapist for 35 years, and I'm still in the trenches with families, helping them navigate daily struggles and big problems. Parenting can be a flusterclux, but we tackle the serious stuff without being too serious.
I'm Robin. I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host, and I'm here to ask your questions.
And I'm Ed, the producer of Flusterclux.
And my brother.
And my husband.
Anxiety is a family problem with a family solution.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
Good. So at the time of this taping, the Super Bowl is tomorrow.
I know.
So we don't, like, by the time you hear this, we'll know who have won. How are you feeling about the Super Bowl?
Well, right now, I really feel like I'm handling it very maturely. That will probably go away tomorrow. Well, my husband was like, you know what? The fact that they made it to the Super Bowl is great, blah, 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 blah. And I'm trying to adopt that, but I really don't feel that way. I really want them to win. I have been watching an enormous amount of pregame Patriots propaganda. Also, I must say, I'm annoyed with Tom Brady for saying that he doesn't have a horse in this race. Tom, you know what? They put a big statue of you up in front of Gillette Stadium. So you know what? I think you can root for the team where there's a statue of you. So I'm annoyed with him. He's very handsome, but I'm coming to believe that he's kind of a putz.
That's a big statement from you. He's also far less handsome now after his plastic surgery makeovers. Like, what's he thinking?
I know. So he's just he's losing a little shine in my eyes. And I think that's appropriate. And I've got a replacement. There's a cute little guy named Drake May, who's the 23-year-old Patriots quarterback. He's not little, actually. He's 6'5" or something. I was listening to Drake May, who's the Patriot quarterback, and they asked him, they're doing all these questions. They say, who's the person you admire most? And he said, my mom, right? Oh, there are 4 boys in his family, 4 men. He's the youngest, and they're all huge. They're like 6'9" and 6'8". And he said, my mom is the glue that keeps us together. She is the rock in our family. And she raised 5 of us, which includes my dad. And I was like, okay. No. I was like, I can relate to that. She's like, yeah, we've got 4 sons and 1 husband, and she raised all 5 of us. I was like, yes, she did. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll handle it. I'll be okay.
Yes, I know you can handle it.
I can handle it. We'll see. Speaking of raising kids, we're going to talk about social anxiety, and we're going to talk about moms and what they say and what they don't say. I like to look at the research, and I like to see what's out there. And there's some interesting stuff that I think that will make parents feel good. I think it will be instructive, and I think it's optimistic, and I think it's doable. So we're going to talk about that.
Can I say something before we start that? Because I loved the thesis of what you're going to talk about today. And I thought you and I should just have a quick refresher on a couple of key points about managing anxiety and managing these patterns. The treatment and the prevention are the same thing.
Correct.
So what that means is, if you're listening, what if you don't even have kids yet? You have an infant or whatever. You can be really thoughtful about incorporating these strategies at this point before you get to the point where you're talking to children, where you can start sharing your pattern and sharing those things. And then, of course, if you already know you're anxious and you think that your kids are anxious too, or you're not quite sure and you're very anxious about whether or not you're making your kids anxious, remember that treatment is the same as the prevention. And so it's just a good time to philosophically reset. And I just want to also add, well, what if you are not the anxious person in your kid's life, but your spouse, a grandparent? If there are these anxious voices, and saying these types of things in your life, then you have a responsibility, ideally, to sort of counter that impact.
Yes. And just as you say that, there is something that is, in terms of optimism, there is something that is really helpful to know. The research shows that if one parent or adult is saying the things I'm going to talk about and the other one is not, the fact that the other one is not makes a difference. If you think like, oh, well, I'm the non-anxious parent, but boy, my anxious spouse absolutely just marinates our kids in their anxious sentiments. The research shows that you matter. And I've talked a lot about that. Very often the non-anxious parent is sort of silenced, like, you don't understand this, and you're careless, and you don't know how to help our child. The non-anxious parent, what they say, what they do, how they respond, absolutely makes a difference. So you do have a responsibility to not only look at your own behavior if you're an anxious parent, but also if you're the non-anxious parent, you got to step up and you've got to say, like, look, this is important for us to recognize, and I'm going to keep doing the things that I know the non-anxious parent does. Don't give up. Don't roll over.
Right, because nobody wants their kids to experience a lot of social anxiety. Nobody wants it.
Yeah.
Take a break and get started.
All right. One of the things I know about my profession is if you want to become a better therapist, the research shows that it's what therapists do outside of the therapy sessions. The research really highlights curiosity, learning, taking in new information, and Masterclass does that in so many amazing ways. Classes that I love that are directly relatable to what I do for a living. I love the new Anna Lemke class that's on dopamine, learning how to take your brain back from our dopamine overloaded environment. Michael Lewis, how to tell a story. I talk for a living. I take in all of this information because it's interesting in and of itself, and it just prompts my mind, prompts my curiosity. It keeps me learning, and it's going to do the same for you. Whether you want to figure out how to negotiate your next raise with lessons from super agent Rich Paul, or maybe you want to design your dream home with Joanna Gaines. So many people have benefited from the amazing work of James Clear talking about atomic habits. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. They've got plans that start at $10 a month, billed annually, and you get unlimited access to over 200 classes. They're taught by the world's best business leaders, writers, chefs, and more. 3 in 4 surveyed members feel inspired every time they watch Masterclass, and I'm one of those people. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/fluster. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/fluster, masterclass.com/fluster. So it's a new year, which means that you had a previous year that was full of family memories or events. Maybe you took a ton of pictures and now you want to create something special, something that tells the story of your family, of your year. Journey Print has the solution. They create photo books for you that are so effortless. Their unique AI auto-arranges your photos into a beautiful book and handles the stunning layout in seconds. Premium quality guaranteed. They use the latest printing technology to ensure your photo books look as stunning as your memories. My nephew got married this fall, a beautiful wedding, incredible. We took so many pictures, and I used Journey Print to create an amazing memorable photo book. The book looks great. It feels great in your hands. I use the premium satin paper. It was so easy for somebody like me who's not crafty. You can drop and drag images. You can add emojis if you wanted. I used maps that just made it look so special. I chose one of the 35 theme options that fit perfectly with the feel of their wedding and the fun of our family. It's just a great product. Go to journeyapp.com/podcast/Flusterclux and use the code Flusterclux to get 30% off your next purchase. That's Journey, spelled JOURNI, app.com/podcast/Flusterclux and use code Flusterclux at checkout. I'm a sheet snob. I know what good sheets feel like. I know what bad sheets feel like. So when I got my Bowl and Branch signature sheets, I said to myself, all right, let's see, right? Is it going to live up to the hype? I will tell you, they live up to the hype. I love these sheets. You slide in. They are so soft. They are such high quality, breathability. You got to try it. If you haven't slept in good sheets, if you haven't slept in high quality sheets, you deserve some Bowl and Branch sheets. And if you're somebody like me who really says to yourself, I'm going to have good sheets, then you're going to feel this organic cotton. Your bed is going to be so deeply comforting. You're going to love it. They are made with the finest 100% organic cotton. There is a difference in the craftsmanship that you can feel immediately. Buttery soft. That's what I'm going to say, buttery soft. And they get softer with every wash. Discover a softness beyond your wildest dreams with Bowl and Branch. Get 15% off your first set of sheets plus free shipping at bowlandbranch.com/Flusterclux with code Flusterclux. That's Bowl and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/Flusterclux. Code Flusterclux to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. Okay, we're back. Okay, so Robin, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because I got a question from a parent recently in an interaction where they were really trying to figure out how much of their shyness, how much of their social anxiety is going to be passed on to their child. Because this was a mom who said, I just know that I've always been a shy person. I have a really hard time speaking up for myself when I'm in a group of people. Like, I like hanging out with my friends, but I'm never going to be the one that's going to be the talkative one. Everybody has always said, oh my gosh, you're so quiet. And I want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to make sure that my child doesn't struggle with her shyness the way that I did. And I said, is your child shy? And she said, well, I don't know yet. Like, I wouldn't say that, but I just want to make sure that I'm not amplifying things. So that's what really led me to look at this research and to want to talk about this. So here's what one of the studies says. There's a sentence in a study that says, our findings suggest that social fear beliefs can be transmitted from parents to children via, and here's the researchy language, the verbal information pathway, which just means what you say matters. The verbal information pathway. And there are two things that seem to come into play based on the research, which is how a parent talks about social interactions, and also whether or not your child actually has kind of that predisposition, that temperament that sort of sets them up. So we've talked about behavioral inhibition. Behavioral inhibition describes kids that have big sort of scared reactions to new stimuli. So if you introduce them to a new toy, or if there's a new person that enters a room, do they have sort of a scared reaction to that? So we know that we've got these two things going on, these two things that are influencing it. What's great about what the research showed, and this is looking at mothers in particular, how mothers talk about social interactions, how mothers preview a social interaction, what they say really makes a difference. And when moms have higher levels of social anxiety, they tend to say more negative things about a potential social interaction. They tend to tell more negative stories about how a social interaction would go. And when kids are more temperamentally shy or behaviorally inhibited, they're more reactive, more receptive to those negative things. So, in other words, if you are a socially anxious mom, you tend to say things like, oh, I don't know if those kids are friendly, or be careful when you go to the playground because sometimes kids are mean, or we've got to be careful to make sure that you only pick friends, fill in the blank. If those kids tend to have that vulnerability, they're really going to glom onto those statements. Here's the good news. If you've got a kid who doesn't have that temperament, you can say a lot of these things and they're less responsive to them.
Let's go back for a second and let's think about that mom. Say you've got some preschoolers in the house or you've got young kids and you know that you're shy and socializing isn't as easy for you. Remember, the good news is in your home, you're likely not that shy.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time this kind of shyness and this hesitation and social anxiety is going to come out is very focused on interacting with the children's friends for the most part. And so when you are thinking about introducing the concept of friends and play dates, what are some of the things you should be saying and what are those phrases that you're saying to stay away from?
So the phrases that you want to stay away from is that you want to stay away from anything that is pessimistic, that's negative, and that's fear-based.
Yeah, catastrophic, right?
Yeah. And even just not even catastrophic, but even just sort of like Eeyore-ish, like, well, I hope the play date goes well, unlike the way it went the last time, wah, 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 like the Debbie Downer stuff. There's definitely what we call threat relevant statements. So like, I need you to be careful. And when you go over to this person's house, make sure that you be careful and you give them all this sort of like stranger danger talk, which actually the research shows that all that stranger danger stuff doesn't really do anything. I talk about that in the anxiety audit. So you want to make sure that you're not saying like, oh gosh, I hope they're not mean to you, or saying, hey, if anybody's mean to you during this play date, make sure you tell me. Like all these things that the kid's like, okay, all right, well, I'll be on the lookout for that. The positive statements are really like, you know what? I think you're going to have a great time, or I'm so excited for you to go to this play date, or you know what? Every time that you get to play with your friends, I see you come back so happy, or you know what? I'm so interested to hear what toys you're going to play with. When you start talking about positive anticipation, when you convey to your child that you're optimistic, that you're looking forward, that they should look forward, those kids, when they talk about the play date afterwards, which we call post-conversation fear beliefs, those kids tend to be less anxious. They tend later on to show less social anxiety. So rather than talking about what you need to be careful of, it would be like, say your kid was going on a picnic, right? I'm just picking something random. You can say, okay, so while you're at the picnic, make sure that you chew your food thoroughly so you don't choke. Or remember, there are bees out this time of year, and if you get stung, make sure you tell an adult. Or it's warm outside, so stay hydrated. We certainly don't want you to get dehydrated. Those would be all sort of like, if I heard that, if I'm sitting next to somebody at the playground talking like that, inside I would be like, oh my God. So what you want to say is, oh my gosh, I'm so excited we're going for a picnic. It's going to be so fun. I wonder what we're going to do when we're there. Negative versus positive.
I remember now, even before we're at the play date age, every mom has to handle the park age. Because you've got like a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old. You don't know who's going to be at the park. You're just like getting the baby out of the house. It depends on where you live. Like if I showed up at the park at that stage in parenting, I would have no idea who the people were. We went to such a tiny little preschool. I wouldn't know people. Every mom, I think that this is such a fascinating truth that no matter who you are, every mom shows up to a room with other moms and thinks they're all in on a party or a social circle that they are not a part of. It's so weird, but we think that. Everyone thinks that they all already know each other and that they all hang out, but you're the outsider. Even an extrovert like you or I still feel that way when we are at a park.
Yeah. And I guess it just comes down to, as usual, that we can have these thoughts and we can have these feelings. We just have to be really conscious of how we convey them verbally to our children. So that's what when they're talking about, when they say the verbal information pathway, it's how we talk to our kids about it. It's the language that we use. Yeah.
Think of how many moms don't even go to the park to be put in this situation. And I think that just like a little pep talk is you show up and you sit on the bench, you have a serene smile on your face, and don't worry that you're not talking to anybody. Just enjoy watching your kid and enjoy the sun on your face or whatever. And stay as long as you can in pieces.
That's right.
Make yourself uncomfortable, but it'll just get easier, because this is where a lot of these opportunities for your kids to start talking to other kids and whatever, then they're like, hi, you want to play? Hi, You want to be friends? It's so great to give them that experience.
Even say you're at the park and say, you know, that you're like this mom that was talking to me. She knows that she's shy. She knows that she's socially anxious. The homework assignment I might give to her is, okay, so when you go to the park with your kids, I want you to focus on modeling for them some sort of positive interaction. Like I want you to just smile and say hello to 3 other moms. And that's what kids are watching for. They're looking to see whether or not you're afraid. And we know that in so many studies that we're watching with toddlers, with babies, if you've got a child who temperamentally tends to be more frightened of things, we know that they are looking at their parents' expressions. They're looking at their face. They're looking at their body language, because that's how kids learn what's okay and what's not okay. And again, the good news is that if you've got a kid who's really extroverted, if you've got a kid whose temperament is the one that goes up and is like, hi, I'm Johnny. How old are you? I want to play. I'm going to be a fireman. You want my truck? You know, we know those kids. Those kids are really not very impacted by the negative statements by the anxious parent. That's the good news. So we know if you have that predisposition, you're wonderfully shielded oftentimes from the anxious parent's negativity. If you've got a child who's susceptible to that, who's got your temperament a little bit, that's when you really have to pay attention. You have to recognize. The other thing that the research showed, which was kind of interesting, is that say you have a child who's shy, behaviorally inhibited, tends to be fearful, even if you're not the parent with that temperament, you oftentimes change your responses. You get pulled into your child's shyness. You react to it. You become more fearful. Oh my gosh, we're going to go to the playground and somebody's going to offer him a truck and he's going to run away or he's going to cry. And so that parent's like, oh God. So they go into it. They start going into it with some negative anticipation. The negative anticipation, wherever it comes from, is impactful. So we've got to really pay attention to how we're talking about interactions. I have talked to plenty of parents who have said, you know, it is my job to warn my child about the potential dangers. It is my job to keep them safe. It is my job to make sure that they know that there are bad people in the world, because if I don't tell them that, who's going to tell them? And I'm like, okay, you've got to temper that. If you tend to be a parent who feels like my job is to keep my children safe, my job is to make sure that I warn them about everything, pay attention to that. And at the very least, make sure that you're looking for positive things to say as well, that you're not stuck in that consistent pattern of catastrophically viewing the world, of predicting negative outcomes, of thinking that as long as I don't get their hopes up, that's what negative, anxious, fearful parents tend to do. And it makes a difference.
I think of the various moments in my past, a slideshow of encounters when anxiety was really running the show. I remember being at a playground and meeting a new mom that was new to the school district. And she had like 3 little kids, and one was in my daughter's class. And we start talking, and I could tell there was something that she said, but this was several years ago, so I don't remember exactly. But all of a sudden, she said something that indicated she's socially anxious and really uncomfortable talking and going out and socializing with other parents. So she indicated that. And it was great that she actually told me. She felt comfortable telling me that. I understood not to like bring over another family that I knew or whatever. And I think that that's also an interesting point too, is to say like, I'm a little shy, so I don't know that many people here, but I'll get to it one family at a time or something. It's like a healthy way she was owning this, but she was clearly like, but I'm still wanting to talk to you. I'm still wanting to get to know you. That's important. I think that there are other parents I know who the daughter was very anxious, and the mom, I could tell, was probably limiting how many play dates she did when she was really in that true play date age, which is what, like 3rd grade to 6th grade, because she was worried things wouldn't go well on the play date. So there just weren't that many. And then they just didn't host that many. So what do you say to that mom?
There's often an interaction between a child's anxiety and a parent's anxiety. And one of the things that we look at is how does a child who is anxious or is having difficulty with play dates and that kind of stuff, how does that actually increase a parent's response? Perhaps you see your child as having difficulty at play dates, or perhaps you really worry that they're going to have difficulty at play dates. The more that you hold back, the more that you avoid, the more that you accommodate, the worse the problem is going to get. And one of the things we look at is reassurance. The more that a parent reassures an anxious child, it works in the short term, but the worse the problem gets. So you really have to say, okay, so how can I make sure that my family is practicing social engagement? It's all about practice. And this mom she feels like she's being protective, right? She says, well, my kid isn't good socially, or things don't go very well, or I can tell that it's my fear, but I can't handle it. There's a whole lot now about, my child is too fragile, or my child gets overstimulated, or my child gets overwhelmed. So this whole protective thing comes into play. You've got to let your kids practice.
Yeah, it's like it's practice, not protection.
Correct. It is practice, not protection. The more that parents say, well, I'm actually doing my child a favor by protecting them from feeling uncomfortable or from having a bad social interaction, what they're actually protecting them from is the ability to figure out how things work. So the more that kids are isolated, particularly if they tend to have this temperament where they're sort of trending toward isolation, the less practice they're going to get. This is why I say over and over again, parents need a lot of support and a lot of coaching in helping their child, particularly if they're anxious and their child is anxious, because they are absolutely feeding on each other.
Well, that's why when you say this, what I feel like is such the important thing is you've got an anxious parent and you've got kids, and you have to really figure out what your strategy is of making sure that you're not denying your kids from really critically important for developmental things. What is the social plan? And that's why it's, what is your park plan? What is your play date plan? What is your birthday party plan? You and I get really tired with all that. But the reality is, like, you got a vanilla ice cream it, which is another phrase we might not have said in a while.
Yeah.
And that is like to remove your emotional response from being the centered thing and like make it about your kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some interesting research. I was just reading an article on this recently where they were talking about emotional reactivity in parents. When you look at anxious families, one of the things that increases anxiety in kids is a parent's emotional reactivity. You have to recognize that that the kids are really watching your face. And what this article concluded is that it didn't matter really whether or not the parent was having a lot of difficulty on the inside, as long as they could be non-emotionally reactive on the outside. And I was like, oh, it's the vanilla ice cream study. Keep your face neutral. And that's what this study showed too. This is why I feel like this is such optimistic, helpful information, is that, and I say this to parents all the time, I don't care what you're thinking and feeling on the inside. You can think and feel whatever you want. Talk about this situation in a positive way. Give your kids positive information. Give them positive instructions. Give them positive feedback. And on the inside, if you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, that's totally fine. It is really important what you show them. And this is saying it really matters what you say. The words that come out of your mouth, really, really helpful.
Yeah. You have to figure out how you're going to get through it, even though it's going to be really hard, but it's so important. And you have to shift your priority. Your anxiety is going to want to tell you to not do it. But as a parent or as a therapist, you're saying, if you don't do these things, this is going to just firmly plant the pattern that you have to pass on to your kid.
Right. And if somebody comes to me and says, my child is really anxious and I really want to help them, or I'm noticing that they're having difficulty interacting and they're very fearful and I really want to help them, does it make sense that I would say, okay, you keep doing exactly what you're doing and I'll fix your kid?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. When we think about this, and I always try and simplify things, and I say this, I have a stack of index cards on my bookshelf and I pull them down and I write things down. It really is fine for you as a parent, if you're trying to figure this out, to come up with a few mantras, a few phrases that you say to your kids as you're heading into social situations. It doesn't have to be complicated, and you don't have to recite a monologue about the benefits of social interaction when you're on your way to the play date. You can say something as simple as, "This is gonna be fun."
You know what I love about this? This is like a greatest hits of all of your things, because it's like, it's vanilla ice cream, talk 85% less. Because if you're so conscious of choosing your words carefully because you have to talk 85% less, just use the things that you pull out of your pocket that are positive.
Yeah. You don't have to come up with something new every time. If you think, like, what are the things that you could say to your kids that almost become kind of family sayings, that almost become kind of family mottos? If your family motto is, "Oh, everything goes bad eventually," or as my grandmother used to say, "Too much laughing turns to crying." That's not a very good family motto. But if you have the family motto of, "We love having fun," or, "You know what? We're going off on a new adventure." Like, it can be as simple as that. But what you're saying to your kids is, as a family, we are stepping into things rather than avoiding, rather than protecting, rather than talking about the dangers. We know anxious parents talk about the world as a more dangerous place. And there's all sorts of research about how anxious parents tend to put danger onto ambiguous situations. So they see something and they frost the cake with the danger frosting. If you can just pay attention to that and have some positive, fun, playful mottos that you use, what I am telling you, everybody, is that makes a difference. It's not that hard. You can do it. I know you can do it.
When we come back, let's talk about older kids and the fear-based parenting moments that we all deal with as well.
All right. Quince is all about elevated essentials that feel effortless. They're designed for layering and mixing, and each piece helps build a timeless wardrobe made to last. It's winter here in New England, and I like to feel cozy, so I've got to go with things that are warm and that last and that can go wear after wear after wear. They've got cashmere sweaters. They've got cotton sweaters. They have some workout clothing, some shirts that I wear to work out. These things take wash after wash after wash. They still look great. Quince works directly with safe, ethical factories and cuts out the middleman, so you're not paying for brand markup, just high quality clothing. I love the stuff I get from Quince. The sweaters, I got a pair of jeans, the workout wear. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/fluster for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/fluster to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/fluster. Hey, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, no pun intended, you have heard over the last several years how important sleep is to our overall well-being and to our skin. It is hard to unwind at night, and it's also hard to take care of your skin. I live in a very, very cold climate. My skin needs time to recover. It takes a beating during these New Hampshire winters. I have been using Osea's newest product. It's the Dream Collection. There's a Dream Bioretinol Body Serum. I put that on at night. I also use the cream at night after the serum. It helps me settle in. It makes my skin feel nurtured. It just feels good. Osea helps reduce visible effects of stress on the skin, including lack of firmness, dullness, dryness all over the body. They have an amazing Dream Bioretinol Body Serum. This is full body. You can use it on your arms, your legs. It is restorative treatment. It visibly de-stresses skin with a holistic blend of bioretinol, red seaweed, magnesium, and lavender. This overnight firming treatment is an essential, efficient step in any bedtime routine. It delivers real transformation for your body and your well-being. It feels good. It smells good. It promotes a restful night while visibly firming and improving skin's elasticity. Give your skin a rest with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FLUSTER at OseaMalibu.com. Okay, so now back to the show.
So, Lynn, we've talked about younger kids, but you have sons and your kids are obviously older than my kids, but you and I can both know that the fear-based parenting moments still come up in social situations around love and rejection and friends and parties. It doesn't go away.
Right.
So, what are the ways for families who probably already have some negative language? Because you either kind of are there or you're not at this point. You sort of know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to sort of turn things around?
Well, if you are trying to turn things around, one of the things I tell parents to do all the time is to just very directly tell your kids that you're in the process of turning things around. So it's really okay. Like I have a family that I'm working with. The mom is really anxious. The kids are late middle school and early high school. And they've had it with her anxiety. They've absolutely had it. And so when we meet together as a family, we talk about how we are turning the ship around, or whatever analogy we use, right? We've been on the anxiety train. We're getting on a different train. So just be very open about it. Say, you know what? I know I have a tendency, or I had a tendency to be really negative, or we tend to sort of move through the world in an anxious way. And I'm really going to work on changing that. Tell them, because they will appreciate that. And then you have to look for opportunities to promote the idea that they can take social risk. So you have to say things like, oh, I know that this might feel really uncomfortable, but go for it. Or, you know what? You're going to go into this job interview, you're going to present yourself, and we don't know how it's going to go, but it's worth taking the risk. So you start talking to them about healthy risk taking. You start talking to them about stepping into things that are uncertain. And again, you don't have to have a soliloquy. You don't have to give them a lecture. You just have to give them the language that says you can step in and you can handle it.
You can also, when the kids are older, you can say, I'm really trying to turn this around, but if you hear me sounding like a negative Nelly, I want you to call me out. It's actually super helpful, right?
Yeah.
When the kids are like, yeah, I think when my son laughed, he was sick. We were on our way out of town to board a cruise ship. He was coming down with something. And I think I brought back like $100 worth of over-the-counter things in this little plastic bag from, the drugstore. And he just looked at me and he was like, I think you're catastrophizing. He was like 7, but he knew I was just like jumping to the worst conclusions.
Right. Well, I think I've told you I had this one little girl who wrote global, catastrophic, and permanent and made signs and put them all over the house. And then when the mom was being catastrophic, she would just point to the sign.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah. The thing about a parent is say you say that to your kids, like, look, if I'm being negative or if I'm being, Debbie Downer, just point it out to me. Your first instinct when they point it out to you is to get defensive and deny it and be like, well, in this situation, or, well, I'm older than you. And if you do that, you are just shutting this down.
Yeah. Your anxiety is always wanting to respond with, yeah, but. Yeah, but. If you want to say yeah, but, then tell your anxiety to, what's the acronym for shut the bleep up?
STFU?
Do people say that?
I mean, do they say like, hey, STFU?
No, they don't.
They don't say that.
But you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. What did I just hear the other day? Somebody said, if its and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a happy Christmas. Have you ever heard that expression before?
No, and I don't know what that means.
Well, they were saying, well, if you do this, they were talking about somebody was saying like, yeah, but I don't know that I can do this. And the person just said, if its and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a happy Christmas.
Oh, okay.
The thing too about having older kids, right? Because I have older kids, is that it doesn't go away. Your desire to protect them, your desire to want everything to be okay. So my younger son was going for a job interview the other day. And he texted me the job interview, and he got the job, but he's really been trying to get a job. And he texted me, the interview was at 10 o'clock. He was on the train. He lives in Boston, and the train broke down. And he texted me from the train at 9:55 saying, the train is broken down. I have an interview at 10. I'm not going to make it. And all of my mother energy was like, oh my God. Yeah. I said, well, just email them. And he emailed, he called, he said, I'm on my way. The train broke down. He got the bus. It was like the Bangle song, Manic Monday. He's like getting the bus and blah, blah, blah. And then he got the job. So he called me, told me he got the job. And I said, oh my gosh, when you were texting me, that was so hard. And he said, I know, I had the cry feeling, which is what we say in our family when we feel like we're going to cry, but we don't cry. And I said, I totally had the cry feeling. And so he's 25 trying to get to a job interview. I'm here working, getting a text from him, and we're both having the cry feeling. I mean, it doesn't go away. It's hard being a parent. I say this all the time. I'll say it again. The earlier, the better, but it's never too late. Let your kids know that you're working on interrupting this pattern, because they are going to be influenced by the way you parent. It's going to influence the way they parent. So I've got kids in their 20s. How they act in relationships, how they move through the world, how they, if they decide to have kids, which I hope they do, if they decide to have kids, I want them to feel like they know how to manage the struggle of parenting without falling into the traps of being overprotective or being overly negative or being over anxious. I'm not like that with them, so I think that we're doing pretty good. But man, it is hard. It's hard to parent young kids. It's hard to parent big kids. The struggles are different. Yeah.
I was just on a work trip with a friend, and we were in a market in a country where it was cultural to bargain.
Yeah, I would hate that.
I went into this total ice queen state, and I inspected the bag I wanted to buy, and I just made sure I didn't even crack a smile. I point to some threading and say, that's not going to last very long. Like I was like in this zone. My friend, meanwhile, was like, oh my God, that's so cute. That's so cute. I love that color. I love that color. And I looked at her and I was like, what are you doing? You need to calm down. Like you are not helping me. And she was like, why aren't you so excited? So then, so she was like, why aren't you so excited? That's so great. They have the color that you want, So she was just like, and I was like, stop it. Right.
Yeah.
Then I was like, we need to work on your emotional regulation when we are shopping. So afterwards, I think she thought I was like really kind of weird. Like, why aren't you so excited? I was like, I'm still in that zone until we leave. Okay. I have a very well practiced vanilla ice cream neutral space. So then it was so great. She texted me when we each got home from our trip. There was some sort of podcast that was talking about improving your emotional regulation. So she forwarded it to me. She says, I'm going to work on this before our next shopping trip.
I'm terrible with that. Like if I go to buy a car and they're like, well, here's the price, I'll be like, okay. Yeah, it drives my husband crazy. I'm bad at negotiating.
Oh, no, I love it. I love it because it taps into that skill, of just being frozen.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I have a lot of skills, but that's why my husband handles the money end of things, because there have been times when he said like, hey, they never paid you for this. You should call them and tell you they have to pay them. And I'll be like, it's okay. He'll be like, it's not
okay.
Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast helpful, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find this information.
And if you'd like to dig deeper on any of these topics, we have specialized playlists on our Spotify profile, and the link is in the show notes. Topics like teens, depression, and OCD. Bye, Lynn.
Bye, Robin. Thank you to Osea for sponsoring this show. Give your skin a rest with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FLUSTER at OseaMalibu.com.